Hey Reddit, I'm 31, and I've lived alone for most of my adult life. I like my space, I like my quiet, and I've never really been the type who entertains drama, especially not family drama. So when my brother's wife showed up at my front door last month with a suitcase in each hand and red-rimmed eyes, I had no idea that I was about to get dragged into a situation that would turn my whole world upside down. For context, my brother Jason is 34. He married Leah 2 years ago after dating her for 5. I've always had a weird relationship with her. Leah was the kind of person who could make you feel like the center of the universe 1 minute, then completely invisible the next. She had this way of drawing people in, making them trust her without question. I never fully bought into it, but Jason did. He was obsessed with her from the beginning. When Leah showed up at my house, she told me they'd had a huge fight and that she just needed a place to crash for a couple nights. I wasn't thrilled about it, but she looked wrecked, like she hadn't slept or eaten in days. So I let her in. I figured it would be a temporary thing, a week at most. It's been 4 weeks now. 4 weeks of strange behavior. 4 weeks of Leah refusing to take calls from Jason, or talk about what happened between them. 4 weeks of her wandering around my apartment barefoot in my clothes, acting like she owns the place. And here's the worst part, Jason has stopped calling too. At first, he texted me non-stop. Wanted to know if Leah was okay, if she said anything about the fight, if I thought she was coming back. But then, just as suddenly as he started, he went silent. Completely dropped off. I haven't heard from him in 2 weeks. No texts, no calls, nothing. And Leah? She's still here. And she's acting like she knows something I don't. Every time I ask about Jason, she changes the subject. And a few nights ago, she said something that chilled me. She looked me dead in the eye and said, if he calls, don't tell him anything. No context, no explanation. Just that. Now I'm starting to wonder if this whole thing isn't what it seems. Something isn't right. And I think I've let something, or someone, into my home that I don't understand at all. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. I hadn't been sleeping well since Leah moved in. Every night, I could hear her walking around the apartment long after midnight. Light footsteps pacing back and forth, sometimes pausing outside my bedroom door. I told myself I was imagining things, but I wasn't. That morning, I heard the shower running, so I figured it was a good time to check the guest room, my guest room, which now looked more like a permanent residence. The bed was perfectly made, which surprised me. Leah never made it before. Her suitcase sat in the corner, half-zipped, and her charger was plugged into the wall. But what caught my eye was the closet door. It was slightly open. Now, I know my own place. I know that closet always stays shut. I rarely use it. Curiosity got the better of me, so I opened it fully. And there it was. A box I didn't recognize. Small, cardboard, no markings. Definitely not mine. I hesitated. I stood there, hand hovering above the lid, telling myself to leave it alone. But something in me, maybe it was instinct, said to look. Inside were papers. Dozens of them. Printed emails, photos, and what looked like credit card statements. But they weren't mine. They weren't even Leah's. They were Jason's. Emails from women I didn't know. Hotel confirmations. Airline tickets. Thousands of dollars in unexplained purchases going back months. And tucked near the bottom, a printed photo, Jason, with some woman I'd never seen before, wrapped around him like she owned him. They were kissing. Leah had been collecting all of it. I felt sick. I shoved the box back into the closet and shut the door. My heart was racing. None of this made sense. If Jason had cheated, if he'd lied and disappeared, why wasn't Leah shouting it from the rooftops? Why was she here, quiet, secretive, holed up in my apartment like she was hiding something? And then it hit me, she didn't come here to escape him. She came here to watch him fall apart. That night, I heard her talking on the phone. She didn't know I was awake. She didn't even try to whisper. I only caught one sentence. He's going to learn what it feels like to lose everything. And I think she meant it. After I found that box, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The images, the receipts, the emails, all of it felt like a trap I'd accidentally stepped into. And now I was stuck. I didn't know if I was supposed to confront Leah, call Jason, or just pretend I never opened that closet at all. So, I did nothing. For 2 days, I kept my distance. Leah, on the other hand, acted like nothing had changed. She was cheerful, oddly so. She started cleaning the apartment, organizing my books, even cooking dinner like we were roommates instead of me being her last-minute refuge. She played music while she cleaned, old indie stuff I hadn't heard since college. Jason's favorite kind. One night, I noticed something else. She had started using my office. Not just casually, like, really using it. Every time I came home, my laptop had been moved. My desk chair had been adjusted. I didn't think much of it at first, until I saw her come out of there holding my spare keys. I didn't even know she knew where they were. I waited until she left the next morning. She told me she was going for a long walk to clear her head, and something in me said now. So I went to the office, not even sure what I was looking for. And then I remembered the bottom drawer of my desk. It was locked. I hadn't opened that drawer in over a year. It mostly held personal stuff. Old photos, backup drives, letters from my ex, even a flash drive with tax files on it. Nothing important to anyone but me. But when I tried the lock, it was jammed. Like someone had forced it recently. My stomach dropped. I got a screwdriver and pried it open. Everything inside was scattered, papers unfolded, photos turned upside down, the flash drive missing. She had definitely been in here. I sat on the floor staring into the mess, feeling this creeping cold crawl over me. This wasn't about Jason anymore. Leah wasn't just hiding. She was digging. And not just into his life, into mine. Later that evening, she came back, holding a coffee cup and smiling like everything was normal. She asked if I wanted to watch something. I told her I was tired. And as she walked past me toward the kitchen, she said something strange, barely loud enough to catch. "You really should change your passwords more often." I didn't say anything. Just nodded, eyes fixed on the TV. But in that moment, I realized something I hadn't considered before. Leah wasn't here by accident. She had a plan. And I was part of it. 2 days after the drawer incident, I woke up to an empty apartment. Leah was gone. No note, no text, no warning. Her coat was still hanging by the door, but her shoes were gone. I don't know why, but I felt both relieved and unsettled at the same time. I made coffee, paced the living room a bit, checked the closet where she'd kept the box. Still there. Then I noticed something on the couch, her phone. It was face down, no case, charging cable still dangling from the wall. She never went anywhere without it. And for someone as cautious and calculated as she clearly was, leaving her phone behind didn't make sense. I stared at it for a while. I didn't want to be the kind of person who snoops through someone else's phone, but something about the way she'd been acting, about Jason's sudden silence, was gnawing at me. I needed answers, and this was the closest I'd gotten. It didn't have a passcode. That, more than anything, made me pause. Leah had locked everything else, her laptop, even her suitcase with a tiny TSA lock, but this? Wide open. I tapped into her messages first. Nothing recent. Then I looked at her notes app. That's when the weirdness really started. There were files, timed logs. March 5th, 10:13 p.m., he was online. Watched his status change to active and then disappear. No message. March 7th, 2:41 a.m., called from a blocked number. No answer. Left no voicemail. March 9th, 6:17 p.m., received a message. He knows about the storage unit. There were dozens of these. Some short, some rambling, all time-stamped and incredibly detailed. She'd been tracking someone, obsessively. Some logs were clearly about Jason. But others. I wasn't so sure. One stood out, dated only a week ago. He's changed. Paranoid. Avoids eye contact. I think he knows I talked to his sister. Not sure what to do. Can't let her find out yet. His sister? That made no sense. Jason doesn't have a sister. But I do. And she's not in this story. Which means either Leah was talking about me and made a mistake, or she was tracking someone else entirely. Then, one final note at the very bottom of the list sent a chill up my spine. When he finds the camera, it's over. Until then, keep smiling. I put the phone down like it was on fire. Camera? What camera? I looked around my apartment, suddenly hyper-aware of every vent, every light fixture, every item that had been moved since Leah arrived. My blood ran cold. Leah hadn't just been watching Jason. She was watching someone else. Maybe me. And now she was gone, without her phone, without a trace. Except she'd left just enough behind to make sure I knew. I was in this deeper than I realized. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a minute. I sat in the middle of my living room, all the lights on, just listening. Every creak, every hum from the fridge, every passing car outside felt like it meant something. My mind was in overdrive. The note on Leah's phone kept repeating in my head, when he finds the camera, it's over. Was it meant for Jason? Or was it meant for me? At some point, I stood up and began tearing through my apartment like a lunatic. I pulled paintings off the wall, checked every smoke detector, dug through drawers, even took the back cover off the TV remote. I didn't know what I was looking for, not exactly, but I couldn't stop. Then I remembered something small but strange. 3 days ago, Leah had insisted on fixing the lamp in my guest room. It wasn't broken, just a loose bulb. But she'd insisted, waving off my help. I didn't think much of it at the time. I grabbed the lamp. It felt heavier than it should. When I unscrewed the bulb and turned the base upside down, I heard a soft clink, like something small had shifted inside. I pried the bottom felt layer off with a knife. And there it was. A tiny camera. Embedded in the hollow base. Wired to a transmitter. Not a nanny cam, not something casual. This was professional grade. Hidden with precision. My heart dropped. I stared at it, this tiny piece of plastic and metal, and realized just how far this had gone. Leah had planted surveillance in my home. Not in Jason's. Not in a storage unit. In my apartment. And I let her in. I thought about calling the police, but what was I going to say? That my brother's maybe ex-wife planted a spy cam in a lamp? That she was logging someone's every move and writing cryptic notes like a conspiracy theorist? I didn't even know what laws this broke. I was scared. And embarrassed. I bagged the camera, sealed it in a Ziploc, and shoved it in the back of my closet. Then I checked her box in the closet again. This time with new eyes. On the inside flap, I noticed something I hadn't seen before, a tiny sticker with a 6-digit number on it. Looked like a unit number. A storage facility, maybe? I googled it. It was local. And it was under my address. She hadn't just made herself at home in my space. She'd used my name to rent a storage unit. And I had no idea what was inside. It took me 2 hours to convince myself to go. I sat in my car outside the facility, staring at the keypad, debating every possible outcome. What if it was empty? What if it wasn't? What if opening it made everything worse? But deep down, I knew, I had to see it. I had to know what Leah was doing. The front desk clerk barely looked up when I gave my name. He just handed me the access code and told me the unit was down the left corridor, third on the right. I walked slow. Every step echoing louder than it should have. My palms were sweaty. My breath, shallow. Unit 1037. I stared at the silver lock for a solid minute before I punched in the code and slid the door open. At first, I thought it was empty. The overhead light was dim, flickering slightly, and the room was mostly bare, no furniture, no boxes, nothing obvious. Except for a single black trunk sitting in the middle of the floor. It looked heavy. Old. Like something you'd find in a war movie. I crouched next to it and opened the latch. It creaked. Inside were 3 things. The first, a hard drive. Thick. Industrial. It had a label on the side, August DEC, house footage. My stomach flipped. The second, a notebook. Spiral-bound, stuffed with loose pages, newspaper clippings, and scribbled notes in Leah's handwriting. Every entry had a date. Some had names. But none of them were Jason's. The third, a stack of photos. That's when everything went sideways. They weren't pictures of Jason. They weren't of Leah. They were of me. Photos of me at the grocery store. At work. Coming out of the gym. Sitting on my balcony reading a book. Some taken from behind. Some taken from inside my apartment, through the window, from angles I didn't even know existed. I felt my body go cold. Leah hadn't been watching Jason. She had been watching me. 4 months. I dropped the photos, backed up against the wall, heart pounding so hard it echoed in my ears. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the floor. But I knew 2 things when I finally stood up. 1, this wasn't about Jason. It never was. And 2, Leah hadn't just invaded my home. She had been planning this long before she ever stepped through my door. I didn't go home right away. I couldn't. Not after seeing those photos. Not after realizing that I had been watched, followed, and studied without ever noticing. I drove aimlessly for a while, hands clenched on the steering wheel, barely blinking. Every time I hit a red light, I thought about the look in Leah's eyes when she first arrived. The way she smiled like we shared some inside joke. I thought about the phone she left behind. The camera in the lamp. The storage unit under my name. And then I did what I should have done weeks ago. I called Jason. He didn't pick up the first time. Or the second. But on the third call, he finally answered. His voice was hoarse, quiet, like he hadn't spoken to anyone in days. When I asked where he'd been, there was a long pause. Then he said, "I've been trying to figure out how to tell you." Those words hit harder than I expected. He told me Leah had left him suddenly, about a month ago. No fight. No warning. Just packed a bag and vanished. He'd spent days trying to contact her. At first, he was worried. Then he got angry. Then he got scared. Because it wasn't the first time she'd disappeared. He started telling me things I never knew. Like how 2 years ago, shortly after their wedding, he caught Leah digging through his laptop while he was asleep. She said she was just looking for photos. But he knew it wasn't that. Or how she used to keep a journal of his daily routines, when he left for work, what route he took, how long he stayed at the gym. He thought it was weird, but she convinced him it was just a harmless habit. A way to feel connected. He never told me because he thought he was overreacting. But the final straw came 3 months ago. He caught her recording their conversations. Not just on her phone, with hidden devices. When he confronted her, she said it was for a writing project. He didn't believe her. And then she vanished, and reappeared at my place. When I told him everything, about the camera, the photos, the storage unit, he went silent. I heard him breathe hard through the phone, once, twice. Then he said something I'll never forget. "You need to get out of that apartment. Now." I asked him why. And that's when he told me something I never saw coming. Leah wasn't just obsessed. She had a history. Jason's words echoed in my ears long after I hung up. She has a history. He didn't mean with him. He meant with me. It took a minute to sink in. I replayed every memory I had of Leah, family holidays, dinner parties, that awkward weekend at the lake house. None of it felt out of place. She had always been polite, charming even. Never too familiar, never overbearing. Just there. Jason texted me a few minutes later with a name, Emily Walsh. He said, that's who she was before she became Leah. I didn't understand. And nickname? A maiden name? No. A whole different identity. I typed the name into a search engine, expecting nothing. But the hits came fast. Old social media accounts. A blog. A couple of old news articles, nothing major. Until I found the one that stopped my heart. It was from a small local paper, 7 years ago. A brief piece about a college student, Emily Walsh, expelled after being caught stalking a classmate. It wasn't just messages or following him to class. She had broken into his apartment while he was out of town and rearranged things. Subtle things. Like replacing books on shelves, rehanging photos. Even washing his clothes and leaving them neatly folded on the bed. She told campus security she was just trying to make him feel seen. The classmate? His name wasn't mentioned. But the school was. And I went there, too. That's when it hit me. I didn't know Leah as Leah back then. I knew Emily. Briefly. Barely. A girl in a poetry class I dropped after 3 weeks. We spoke maybe twice, once about a group assignment, once when I handed her my notes before I transferred out. I hadn't thought about her since. But she remembered me. Jason told me she mentioned me all the time. Said I was kind to her when no one else was. That I was different. That I made an impression. I was her safe person. I felt like I was going to be sick. This wasn't just about a bad breakup. This wasn't even about Jason. He had been a placeholder. A connection. A way in. Leah, Emily, had used my brother to get close to me. And now she was in my home, had access to my accounts, my photos, my life. She had known exactly what she was doing. And I had let her in with open arms. I didn't go home that night. After everything Jason told me, I checked into a hotel using cash. I didn't post about it, didn't text anyone. I turned off my location, left my car a few blocks away, and walked the rest of the way on foot. I knew how that sounded, paranoid. Overdramatic. But when you find out someone's been living in your space, watching you for months, using your family to get closer, you stop caring about what sounds crazy. You just try to stay unfound. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that storage unit. The photos. The notes. Her handwriting. The next morning, I called a locksmith and a friend from work. I didn't explain much, just that I needed help getting into my place while someone watched the hallway. I didn't want to be alone. And I had to get in fast, because if Leah had planted one camera, who knew what else she had left behind? We swept every room, every drawer, every corner. We found 2 more hidden devices. One tucked inside a vent cover in the bathroom. Another mounted under the kitchen island, wrapped in black tape. Both had memory cards. I bagged them with gloves and labeled them like evidence. Because at this point, that's what they were. But it wasn't until I checked the bedroom closet that I found the real surprise. Tucked behind an old shoebox was a padded envelope. It was addressed to me. No return address. Just my name, written in that familiar, slanted handwriting I now hated. Inside was a letter. 4 pages. Written in blue ink. Neat. Deliberate. The first line read, "I know you know now. So I'll tell you the truth." And she did. In terrifying detail. She wrote about meeting Jason on purpose, how she looked for someone who would lead her back to me. Someone close, but not too close. Someone she could manipulate. She wrote about tracking me online for years. Watching my old college blog. Following my social accounts under burner profiles. Learning who I was, what I liked. Where I shopped, who I dated. Where I lived. She said she never meant to scare me. That she only wanted to be near. She said she believed in fate. That I saw her back then, when no one else did. She said I had saved her once, and she just wanted to be worthy of that. But the last paragraph chilled me the most. I left before you told me to, because I knew you would. But this isn't over. Not yet. I'm just giving you space, like you always needed. But we'll find each other again. You'll see. You always do. She signed it with her real name. Emily. And a postscript. Don't bother calling the police. I was never here. And the worst part? She was right. There was no proof she'd broken in. No sign of force. Every camera? Hidden in things she bought. The lease for the storage unit? In my name. All of it designed to vanish, to blend, to look like nothing at all. And now she was gone. It's been 17 days since I found her letter. Since I swept my apartment 3 more times. Since I had every lock changed, every outlet checked, and every device stripped to the bones. I even switched phones. Burned every account and started over. Took time off work. Left town for a few days. Did everything I could think of to sever whatever invisible thread Leah, Emily, had wrapped around my life. But even when she's gone, she's here. Every time I hear a floorboard creak, I wonder if she came back. If she's inside the walls of my mind the same way she was inside my home, quiet, watching, waiting. Jason has gone dark again. Not because he disappeared, he just doesn't want to talk. I think he's trying to pretend it didn't happen. That it was just a bad marriage. That she didn't lie her way into both of our lives with the patience of someone who's done this before. I know better now. I kept the letter. I gave copies of everything to a lawyer, just in case. I tried filing a report, but they didn't take me seriously. No physical harm, no stolen items, no proof of criminal intent. I didn't push. I just let them file it and walked away. But I haven't stopped looking over my shoulder since. I thought maybe she'd moved on. That maybe it was over. Until last night. It was late, past 1 a.m. I was in bed, reading. The TV was on low, just enough background noise to keep the quiet from creeping in. Then, I heard it. A knock. Not loud. Just one. Knock. I froze. I live in a secured building now. Top floor. New address, unlisted. Only a few people even know where I live. And no one comes over this late. No one should even be able to get in. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I waited. And then I heard something slip under the door. Paper. I got up slowly, heart pounding. Looked through the peephole. No one. I waited another full minute before I bent down and picked it up. A small, unsealed envelope. My name, again. That same slanted handwriting. But this time, no note. Just a photo. A picture of me, taken from behind. I'm sitting on the park bench near my new place, wearing the same jacket I wore yesterday. And written on the back, in neat blue ink. Told you. You always find me. That's it. That's where I am now. I don't know what to do next. I don't know if this is a warning or a message or just a game she still thinks we're playing. I've thought about leaving again, but what's the point? She's not chasing me. She's waiting. And somehow, I don't think I've seen the worst of her yet.